Hello and welcome to Stylish Chats with Creatives. Today on the podcast, I'm speaking to the co-founders and bubble facilitator of Wilson's Republic. Let me introduce you to Aidan Nolan, Darren Evans and Katy Ennis Hargreaves. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you all doing?
Good. Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
Thanks for having us.
That's all right. I had a brief chat with, well, I say brief, but me and Katy did recorded an episode that will be released in a few weeks. And she then posted about Wilson's Republic and your creative bubbles. And we hadn't even discussed them on the podcast. So I went back to Katy and just asked her what this is all about. So this is why you guys are here tonight, to have this chat, to fill me and the listeners in on what Wilson's Republic is. So would you guys be able to tell me what it is and how it started?
So Wilson's Republic is, and we've probably gone through a few variations of it, but I think we've settled on a community. So we've used the word network before, but I think sometimes it's a bit of a dirty word, is it? Networking. But yeah, a community of creatives. So it started out very much with a design kind of focus, because Aidan and myself are both designers. But quickly kind of realised that it needed to grow a little bit. So the original reason it started out is, so we're all based in Huddersfield in West Yorkshire. And this is going back sort of 2014, 2015. We realised that there was quite a lot of talent in the town for some reason. And, there's talent everywhere, talent in every single town. But we just had this, we knew there were lots of people doing amazing things for like these massive global brands, but they were all freelancers and working on their own or small agencies. And we just thought, what is it about Huddersfield? What's happening here? That's, something in the water. I don't know, some people might have an opinion about that. But so we just thought we needed to get together. And it started off from there. So we held the first event in 2015. We got about 40 people there, which actually blew us away, but it felt like there was something in it. And then we held another event about 6 months later, kind of 60 people there. And I think on our third event, I think it was, we got sort of nearly 100 people, and that was just after having 3 events. And they're a very relaxed affair. We have a couple of speakers come along. They talk about their life as a creative. We try to keep a Huddersfield kind of theme to it. So there's a lot of people that were born in the town now, either live abroad or in London, but they've got sparkling careers. So we asked some of them back. So we've had a real mix of people that are living and working in the town, but those that have gone on to maybe stardom. Was that the right word? I don't know. And that's the format. And just a couple of times a year, obviously COVID kind of break from that. And so we're back on it. So we're still doing the events a couple of times a year, and it's really growing. And we're starting to attract some really good speakers as well. I mean, we have a theme every time we do the event, and so the speakers speak to that theme. And yeah, we're kind of at this position now where it's just really nice because we know a lot more people, and we know a lot more collaborators, and we know a lot more not just designers but artists, photographers, architects, all manner of creative disciplines come together. So it's been a real strength. Was that okay, Aidan? Do you think?
Yeah.
Very good.
Full marks.
10 out of 10.
I'll be the succinct one, shall I?
I've never got 10 out of 10.
On the answering.
That's good. So you have like a complete mix of creatives then. That's quite interesting that you've got such a broad mix there. Did it just come from word of mouth?
I think it helps with who you select as your speakers. So I think that helps to bring in different audiences. And I think that comes down to me and Darren being interested in other people. We sort of do graphic design all day, so it's quite nice to sort of hear from a textile artist about their process and what's similar, what's different. So I guess that helps grow the audience, but also grow our interest, basically, in who we get up to speak. So the lineup sort of changes. And it allows it to just feel a little different, I guess, from other design events.
Because I think I've been to like the odd networking event where these like corporate like breakfast things, and you've got to stand up and say who you are. Oh, as a creative, that's not kind of what you want from a collaborative space. You don't want to be like forced to be like, oh, my name's Charlotte and I do this. Like, you want to be able to chat and like bounce ideas off lots of different people, right?
Yeah, no one wants a cold bacon sandwich on the M62 at some hotel or whatever it is. Those things always send a shudder down my spine. But I always go to things in Manchester, or I go to things in Sheffield that were sort of very design focused and creative focused. And I was thinking, we can do that here. We've got enough people. And just from the locality, we could still attract people from Leeds, Sheffield, Manchester to come to the events as well, because we're sort of very accessible on the train line as well. So, which we have done. We've got people coming to the events, not just from the immediate Huddersfield, Dewsbury area. They're coming from far afield as well. So that's really encouraging.
That's really good. So it's like adding to your pool of people that you can call on to collaborate with as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's. I mean, that's been one of the things we know for a fact, that people have started to work together that would never have met before. So whether that's them pitching for some work together, or whether they are, for instance, if they're a graphic designer, they might find a new photographer to work with, or a new illustrator, or a new artist. So we know that's been happening, and I think it stemmed as well from having a belief in in the creative industries, and the power that has, and as a town, or even as a borough, you're always seeing these kind of initiatives where they say, we need to be a digital hub and we need to do this, and we don't need another digital hub. So it's just, what can we achieve if we are a bit better connected, stronger, and together on it. So what can we achieve? I mean, we haven't even really gone anywhere with that yet. Maybe we'll come on to that when we start talking about the bubbles, but yeah, I think there's a drive to make some change, and the creative industries can do a lot more than sort of work for themselves. What can we do when that mixes with business?
Yeah, I think it's important as well. Like here, we moved to Home Firth like 2 years ago, and I knew it was slightly creative, but I didn't realize how many creatives actually live here or in the area. And it's kind of like people kind of skim over Kirklees because they're like, oh, we're going to Leeds, or oh, we're going to Manchester or Sheffield or whatever. And actually, like you're saying, there's such a big pool of talent here as well.
What I would say is that the area of Huddersfield, Kirklees, etc., there's a lot of good people doing stuff, but they're all very siloed off, and we're not very good at putting a head above the parapet and going, hey, look at what we're doing, because we just get your head down and do the work. So the idea was to try and get that story told a little bit. And there's always a job to be done on how effective that is, but I think networks like ours are a good platform to sort of get that, change the perception a little bit, I think.
Yeah, and I think sometimes creatives can be quite confident in the work they're doing, but marketing yourself and like getting out there can be really scary if you're not used to just saying like, hey, I'm here, I'm amazing, and it can be quite, if you've got that network of people to help you do it, I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Agree.
100% agree with that.
And I think that's kind of where, it's a really nice segue into the bubbles, really, and where that kind of came from. So that that fear of not fear of running a business, but it's like getting drawn into this business speak, which we kind of sometimes a lot of creatives just don't really connect with that kind of thing. Much happier speaking to a fellow creative.
So I think about that. So I was talking, because I teach at University of Huddersfield as well. And I always talk to students about this, that we spend all our time building up a sensitivity to creative stuff. And I always remember this from Jerry Seinfeld, the comedian. If you put like comedians in a room, they will like get together and talk because they're like on a similar wavelength. And I think designers, creatives are all the same. We spend our lives sort of doing this stuff, and we want to just meet and chat with other like-minded people. So it was like, it's really lovely that you can sort of facilitate that. I think as a network, I think it's really, really good.
Yeah, and I think it cuts the like you were saying, the business speak, because for one, if someone comes up to me and uses loads of massive long words that I don't fully understand and they're in business speak, I'm like, I'm not interested anymore. I'm done. Whereas creatives are like, hey, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Come and do this. And, and they're a bit more relaxed about stuff. Katy, what is your role as bubble facilitator? What does that involve?
It's just blowing bubbles to the camera and making it all look joyful and fun. No, it sounds like it's a great name, isn't it? It's a great title. As a facilitator, I'm one of the 6 of us that are facilitators. So basically, it's my job to herd a bubble, as it were. So there'll be 5 creatives within each bubble, 1 facilitator, and over the space of 3 weeks, an hour a session, we'll get together, and usually within the first session, there isn't any kind of stand-up introduction, elevator pitch crap that you get on networking stuff, which is entirely what Wilson's Republic and Creative Bubbles is like the antithesis of. So everybody who hates those kind of events, it's not that, which is brilliant, and which is why I believe in it so much. So it's the ability to be able to get 5 people together, all from different backgrounds, different disciplines, different characters, different skill sets, different levels, and to be able to get them all on sort of one platform and have just different conversations about commonalities within the creative sector. So the themes that come up can repeat, and there can be patterns to some of the themes, but people help each other and support each other just by talking about these things without even knowing it. So you've got extroverts and introverts who are able to have conversations in a small closed group where nobody's feeling at a different level from each other. It's completely level playing field. And I think that's kind of the beauty of it, really, because you get such a vast array of amazing creative people that are all so different and see things completely different ways, but all being able to talk about potentially a few different common subjects, or the conversation will flow and you'll find that people start to get really excited and jump on board with other things. And before you know it, there's a debate going on about something. And it opens up so many different avenues of thinking and different doors for people and different opportunities as well. People stay friends beyond the bubbles. And like the guys were saying, they either collaborate together, or they do work together further onwards, or they keep each other in mind or recommend other people as well. And a lot of people support each other emotionally through things like budgeting and costing is always a really big one that comes up. How do you price jobs? How do you market yourself? People who are really introverted and don't like to market themselves, like we talk about how we can get around things like that. And how we find new business, how, the pain points, it's the good, the bad and the ugly, really, of all sort of creative life.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
It sounds really good. It sounds like a lot less pressure. What I'm gathering from you guys is it sounds like a lot less pressure and just a more like-minded group of people. And I think that's what we as creatives thrive off of. So how did you guys decide that you were going to do little bubbles alongside your other networking event? How did that come out? Is that something that came out of COVID or?
Yeah, so the idea itself of it was born of COVID, as you might imagine, because the bubbles that were happening in COVID. So that's when the ideas spring up. In hindsight, we should have started it in COVID because it would have been absolutely perfect. But we didn't, and that's it. If it happens again, we'll be all over it.
Let's not do that.
Let's not
let's not do that now. It kind of started off. There was so we get a bit of support from the council. Not necessarily financial support, but they know what we're doing. They can see what we're trying to do. Obviously, they want the creative industries to get together. And I think post-COVID, obviously we all know if you were a freelancer of any description, COVID absolutely decimated you because a lot of people just fell through all of the support, like the furlough you couldn't get. It was a lot of people who ran their own businesses as a freelancer kind of really just fell through that. And so I think as a post-COVID thing, there was there was a need to find out what the creative industries needed from a business support point of view. So we ended up with almost like a research project to go and find out what the creative industry wanted from in terms of what they thought of business support and what they wanted from business support. And so we thought that rather than going and standing with a clipboard, we thought actually the bubbles might be a nice way of actually gaining that kind of info. And so we kind of piloted or prototyped the bubbles. We had 3 bubbles going, so we had 15 people, all from different disciplines. And we just trialled the bubbles, but at the same time, we used that as a way of getting the information about what people wanted. And that's really where it started. And we got such a good response from both camps, really. So we even wrote a report. I mean, we don't do reports, but we wrote a report.
We were in uncharted territory.
It really was. Yeah. It looks great. I don't know if it says anything, but
designed beautifully.
Of course,
absolutely top design. It really is. But we found out some really good stuff. That things like freelancers wear different hats. So just because you're a designer doesn't mean to say you earn your money just as a designer. You might actually train or coach, or you might do something else. So, or you might work for another agency as a kind of freelance thing. So there's lots of people who work for themselves earning money through different ways. There's no business support mechanism for that. And so that was just one of the little insights. And so we got a load of information, and we found out that the bubbles worked really well. And so we put that back to the local authority, and they actually pitched for some funding for us. So we got some funding to trial it. So we did another cohort, which we did last year. And equally, just got really, really good feedback. That's when, we already knew Katy. Katy was on one of the original bubbles. She's been there, done that. She's running a business. She's amazing at what she does. And so we just thought, right, okay, we need to get some more people on board to help us to deliver this because, frankly, me and Aidan can't do it on our own.
Yeah.
So that's basically where we are. And we're kind of on the 3rd cohort now. And that's till the end of March, and then after that, we see where we go.
It's really interesting. It's so interesting to see like your guys' journey and adding extra people in as well, and like trying to expand it. I can kind of see how you will make it bigger, because you also would like to take it outside of Kirklees, right, in the future. I've got that right?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think that would make sense.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is that it all relies on your facilitators. So me and Darren, obviously the 2 of us, we've been running events since 2015. Then you have to get another 4 people who are on the same wavelength. You can trust them to sit there and do all the facilitating that we did in the pilot. And, you're lucky that we sort of met 1 or 2 of those within that original bubble, those original bubbles. So it's really fantastic to be able to sort of, let more people in. That's what the whole thing's about, Wilson's. It's not just me and Darren. It is a republic. People can come and take ownership and run with it.
Yeah, it just sounds really good. Like when I saw Katy post about it, I was like, oh, this is piqued a bit of my interest, because we don't get like that much representation. And going back to what you were saying, Darren, during COVID, I certainly like fell through the cracks a little bit, where I wasn't limited company, I was self-employed, and they were like, well, fuck it, your husband earns enough money, like, and actually, like, I was like, what? So our earnings have halved, and you're just like saying it's fine, like, what the fuck? So I think it's like, it's good to have that creative support and go like, you're not on your own. I could have done with it back then as well, to just boost myself back up again, because much like a lot of people, I think I certainly lost my confidence after. And
I think so one of the things, and Katy, you'll back me up, well, you'll know all about this because you talk about this with people on the bubbles, but one of the things that keeps coming across all the time is imposter syndrome. So not, a lack of confidence, but then imposter syndrome. I've got it right now because it's, you'll never kind of lose it. but it's not just about the business side of it. It's, that life as a creative, and there's no predetermined path for a creative, is there? If you've got the creativity in you, yes, you might be a designer, but then you could actually switch to do something else and something else. So there's nothing laid out in front of you, and I think a lot of it's about having that confidence to sort of just go and kind of develop and be what you want to be. Many creatives don't want financial growth, or they don't want to grow their businesses like huge, but they want that kind of lateral growth. They want to learn new things, they want to work with new people, and so that's been something we're trying to work out how do we make that work for everyone, really.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting you're saying lateral growth. I'm the same. I saw you do the same hand movements as well, Aidan. Are you the same?
Yeah, I think this is because obviously when we're sort of doing these projects for the council, they always talk about growth as in, because of this, you're going to get X amount more people into your business. And we're going, yeah, but we're hearing from everyone they don't want to do that. What they want to do is they want to be sustainable and just keep on doing what they're doing. And maybe other people then will come into it. So I think that's what we're talking about, lateral. Other people can see there's a route into it to sort of say, well, I'm just going to be a solopreneur, whatever it is, and run my studio. Maybe I'll work a couple of days a week, but I'll run a creative practice as well. So the bubbles allows you to, talk to other people that are doing it successfully and just have a soundboard and kind of give you that confidence to go, yeah, I'm gonna give this a whirl. Because this is the thing about the bubbles, whether you're like a pre-startup or you've been doing it for 20 years or 10 years, it's open to you. And I think that mix of getting the person that's coming in hot, really enthusiastic, and the veteran, it's really nice. It's a really nice dynamic because they can feed off each other's enthusiasm or experience. I think that's kind of the beauty in it with the mix of the bubbles.
Yeah. Do you find that, Katy, when you're running the bubbles, that you have such a broad mix like that, and age and discipline and everything?
Yeah, massively so. I think that's the beauty of it, because at the root of it, like the foundation of it all, it is about that connection, that creative connection of getting different people together from those varied backgrounds, where there's loads of directories and there's loads of stuff out there you can sign on to in other cities, where, you can see lists of other people and you can connect up to other people in more networky style events. But it's really, because it is smaller and facilitated, the broad mix that everybody has and the experience that everybody comes with is fascinating. So you've got people who are working in massive commercial architecture practices in Manchester but live in Huddersfield and obviously commute. Then you've got ceramicists who have been doing it for 40 years as a single standalone business, who have got this amazing breadth of work, but entirely been isolated or on their own. Then you've got graphic designers who've been standalone designers on their own in the home for 30 years. People who've worked for global agencies on a flip side. And then you've got juniors as well who are now trying to figure out how to go along about it. People wanting to go freelance and independent who just don't know where to start. Nobody teaches you. Well, you get taught how to be a creative, but you're not really taught how to manage it. And you're also not taught to manage all the business crap that comes with it. I mean, I have no idea about funding or, I have no idea about where to seek out funding or anything like that. So there's just, everybody comes with such this amazing breadth of knowledge without themselves even realising how much experience they've got. And that's what's really rich about it. Loads of people turn up worried about what they're going to talk about and then suddenly realise where somebody's got a gap in knowledge, somebody else has got an absolute plethora of it. And the conversation just flows really naturally. So there's not that networky kind of gridded questioning kind of format to it. It's just an hour of loads of people with shitloads of amazing insight and skill and knowledge who are able to share it all. And you find after an hour, everybody's still wanting to carry on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's so good how it happens, and it's really, really organic.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So would I be able to ask you all what you all do as well? So Katy, I'll start with you. I know that you're a bit of a designer. You are a designer, but explain a bit of a designer. You just do a tiny bit on the side, don't you?
Part-time design, rest of the time sequin wearer.
Yeah. / walking the dog. fill me in about what you do, what your background is.
So my background originally was in 3D design, and then I originally went off to work and do 3D design, and then eventually went and did another degree and started in graphic. And then graphic led to print, led to advertising, led to specialising in packaging design, leading to branding, then into content, by which point then I was creative director for different agencies. So it's a really broad mix of varied background, and there was kind of always a bit of a plan that I'd like to work for myself one day. I don't want to grow a massive agency. It's a micro agency. I don't want tons of staff. I don't want massive premises or anything like that. But again, nobody necessarily teaches you. I think there's a really miscommunication in the education system where it kind of tells you there's really linear way to go about being a creative or being a business owner, where you graduate, you get a job, you go up the chain, and then you either start a business, and there's a very simple black and white way of doing it, and there really isn't. And everybody who ends up on the Bubbles calls has a completely different way that they've come about it. Yeah. So that's why it benefits me still, even being a facilitator, to see everybody else and how they work it all as well, because no two businesses are the same in the creative industry. But unfortunately, the government seems to try and put us all into neat little packages and boxes, and it just really isn't that way. So I specialise in branding, packaging, but I work for global brands, so brands that I've worked with, on and off for a long time. So, big dogs, as I call them. But then I've got really small independent kind of chihuahuas and small tiny little indies and SMEs as well. So there's no real discipline to what I pick and work in. I just like really bold work, but it's across any discipline. So it's fashion, home, life. So I'm just a bit of a tart, really. So hence why the Bubbles are perfect.
So Aidan, would you be able to fill in the listeners about your background as well?
I can't. Well, not match what Katy's just come out with there. That was too.
Aidan's
too
far
good.
more refined and professional than me.
I'm not sure about that. So I've always worked for myself. So I graduated in 2007, set up a business, not knowing anything. That business folded, and then I carried on working for myself basically from 2010. And that's when it's luckily where my business was based in Huddersfield. I met Darren. So it was a sort of really nice sort of informal mentorship. So you've got someone there who's had similar ways of approaching things and similar thoughts. So it's that's probably why we got on. And then from that, it's, just running my own personal practice, mainly focusing on brand identity, mainly for chihuahuas, we'll call them now, for Katy's description. So I like sort of working with founders and people that own the business. I think it's really nice to sort of work with people that have got a vested stake in it, because it sort of feels very similar to what I do. And I also teach, and I've LinkedIn tells me I've been doing that for 10 years, so which is astonishing.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. So I started doing that as a way of, you're a couple of rungs up the ladder from where the students are. And it was really nice that you sort of feel relatable to them. But I go back a year older every year, and they're all still 19 or 20. So that's where it's 10 years has gone by, and you're like, no, I'm not relevant to these lot anymore. They're thinking, why are you talking about Seinfeld and Teen Wolf and Prince? I don't know any of these references. What's he talking about? So that's how it is now. So I think I've got no desire, to grow the business. I think I like staying nimble. I like being able to take on projects that interest me, that I want to take on, and I pull in trusted collaborators to sort of scale the projects, which I'm doing more and more recently, which I think, again, is good. I think teaching's helped that, because I've given opportunities to my students. To start as a designer, it's quite hard sometimes to for me particularly, it's quite hard to let other people do stuff. You're like, are they going to do it as I want it? And it's been a really nice experience to sort of give some of that away and give that opportunity to others, and then that little bit of magic comes from it, and I think that's wonderful. I think the sort of Wilsons reflect that idea about collaboration and everything as well. So
I like the idea that you're giving some of your students some work as well, and kind of sometimes it's hard. I was a manager of a studio a long time ago, and I was very young when I managed a studio, and I shouldn't have been doing it. However, to relinquish control from some things, sometimes you've just got to bite the bullet and do it, even though when you run your own business, you're like, oh, are they going to do it right? Are they actually going to do it right? And actually, they maybe come away with a fresh eyes on a project and get something even better than what you thought before, right?
yeah, it's brilliant. It's really good. But I think, again, I think that could only have happened through a bit of teaching, because you're not doing it anyway. You're trying to guide them. I mean, Darren will know about this, being in his position as a bit more of a creative director. Is that a softball pitch to you there, Dazza, for you to tell us what you're doing?
I think that was. I think that was.
Hang on, I'm just trying to register bigdogsandchihuahuas.com. It's a bit stinky.
I've already done it.
Can you get the .co.uk? Someone's got the .com. Yeah, so I'm not even going to tell you when I graduated, because it's So I guess I'm a designer. So, and I'm probably 2 years off being a designer for 30 years.
Wow.
So I started my first agency when I was 24. And that was, lasted a couple of years, not because it went bust, but it actually changed. It kind of morphed into what is now the Engine Room. So I run a brand agency called the Engine Room, based in Murfield, outside of Huddersfield. And that'll be 22 years this year, kind of running that business. Only a small team, not a big agency. We got to a certain size, and like Katy said, it does. You've got no kind of ambition to grow it big, and I would, wholeheartedly, some people love it, some people want to do that, like we got to kind of heady stages of 12 or 13, and then, as a business owner, that becomes quite stressful. It's very, very stressful, and we could have an entire season of podcasts, and they all exist out there about that. So my background is brand. I do spend more of my time kind of leading design now rather than actually doing the design, although I still love to kind of, get hands dirty. Love a good identity system. But I spend a lot of time now, working with businesses to kind of get them to understand what brand is rather than just branding. And so I do that, and then obviously they've got Wilson's, but I also work as a design associate for the Design Council as well, who are the national strategic body for design, I think it is. So they kind of advise government on best practice and what design can do. And I spend a lot of my time working on some amazing programs and kind of facilitating workshops from anything from social isolation to climate change to preventing suicide, using design as a method. So not necessarily, an end product like graphic design or product design, but using design thinking methodologies. And I use that term really loosely because design thinking has been kind of usurped recently. There's a lot on it, and I've tried not to use that term very often, but, I love the challenge of, I love a challenge. I love problem solving and using, how we all think as designers or creatives, even. It's not really in design, it's creatives to kind of solve those problems. So I guess to what Aidan said and what we were talking about earlier, I've done what we said. I'm not just, the designer. I've kind of spread, and I'm getting enjoyment, and I'm doing lots of different things. And that actually, I feel quite happy that I'm doing that, get to meet a lot of people, get to do a lot of different kind of things.
I think variety, especially when you're creative, I don't know how you guys feel. I end up doing lots of different things, hence the podcast, alongside the styling, and then thinking, oh, well, I need a prop hire house, and then I need this. And your brain, my other half actually said to me tonight, he was like, are you going to switch your brain off at some point? It's just pinging with ideas all the time. So it's nice to hear, it's comforting for me as well to hear from somebody who's been in the creative industry a long time, who's like, I'm still doing plenty of lots of different ideas. And I'm like, okay, cool. My brain is going to be like that.
My brain never switches off. It's, Sat here at this time, I often still do work at this time of the day because I've got no distractions. It's quiet, and you can get into flow so much quicker. You get into that kind of, you know when you're going to be creative. You kind of know now because you've been doing it that long. So set the conditions 2 days ago, and now I know I'm going to be setting this time aside. And I think, of course, you need to switch off, don't you? But I think as when I lose that kind of passion for it, that's when I'll stop. That's when I'll get a dog and go walking.
You become the Chihuahua.
Oh.
Guys, you're just stealing my words now.
And I'm going to call it Wilson.
Nice.
Wilson the Chihuahua.
Wilson the Chihuahua. Lovely.
It's going to be a snappy little thing, I'll tell you. I think that, like, talking about, the other thing I think has been really beneficial, specifically, doing, like, the meetups with the Wilson's Republic and also the Bubbles and stuff, is talking about, it's not only the business side of it and, like, the creative side of it, but it's the mental health side and stuff of it as well. Yeah. Talking about, imposter syndrome comes up a lot, and even the most confident of outgoing people can be crippled by imposter syndrome and different issues. And talking about switching off and stuff, I mean, I was awake from 1 o'clock till 4 this morning because my brain decided that's when we were doing ideas. And it happens like that on a regular basis. And then there's also a bit of like a stigma where you think, oh God, if I'm a bit like this, it looks unprofessional sometimes in industry, and you worry about how that comes about. Like, you look as though you don't have control, or you look a bit sort of crazy or a little bit left field or something. And I think a lot of creatives have such amazing brains that work in such different ways. There's a real stigma to people thinking creatives are a bit random, but that's the beauty of it. And it's nice that everybody can share that kind of insight as well and realise it's totally normal to be up talking and thinking about chihuahuas at 1 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, I woke up at 1 a.m. the other day and was like, I'm going on holiday next week. I need to sort my out of office out. Wrote an out of office thing on my notes and then fell asleep. So
always on.
It's just always on. And you just think, like, why am I thinking about this at 1 o'clock? I need to be asleep.
See, I'm worried now. I sleep like a baby, and I'm like, just out like a light. I've got like a light switch on and off. It's good. I worry that it don't come on enough.
You found the answer.
Issue. No, I haven't. I don't think it's not an answer, I think.
It's like, you're the unicorn, you're the one.
Yeah, oh no. But I was going to say about the bubbles, what they're good at as well is going to a big event with 100 people and you don't know anyone. The bubbles are a great way to softly meet new people without you're sort of doing it quite covertly. And then what's happening is people from the bubbles are meeting up at the event. So it sort of gives you that sort of like confidence to go as a group together. And you sort of taking the online stuff into actually meeting face to face, which I think is really wonderful. And I think that strengthens the network rather than it just being the same bunch of people, because networks can become very close very quickly and very cliquey. And I think what the bubbles allow us to do is, because they change different setups all the time, it's never the same group of 5 people. It allows you to get to know who's around you and not just the same people all the time. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think it can be really intimidating if you're going and meeting like a load of new people. I mean, like, I don't know whether you guys find this if you're going in and out of different studios. You're like, it's like your first day at school every time, and everyone knows your name because you're the one freelancer that's come in, and then you've suddenly got to learn like 30 names, and it can be really intimidating, especially if that's like tripled and it's 100 people. Like, that's enough to send anyone with loads of confidence a little bit west, isn't it?
Yeah, big time. You're like that. Oh no, this is me with students. Yeah. Now. I can't remember any names anymore. It's like 10 years and like they're gone. I can't remember names. It's like, I can't. There's like 100 people. You sort of working solo to go in, and then in one day, and you've got 100 students, and you're like, I can't. For my best will in the world, it's like I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. I still make notes to try, but still it's like impossible. Terrible.
You need little like name badges, you know, like when you work in the supermarket, you just need to give them all a name badge.
Or just number them all.
Oh, no,
Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
Colour code.
You can hex them all.
Hex
Like a little colour gradient across.
Yeah. You guys are good. You're the greens. You guys are ambers. You could go either way. We won't talk about the reds. Not many at Huddersfield. We'll go. We'll put the corporate hat on.
Oh, well, thank you so much, guys, for coming on the podcast. I've really, really loved chatting to you all and finding out about your Wilson's Republic and your creative bubbles and your events. And I really think it's something that could benefit an awful lot of people, me, myself included, because there's bound to be connections to be made and like collaborations to be had and everything. So thank you so much for letting me interview you guys and find out what it's all about.
Yeah,
Thank you. We're also looking for more people for the bubbles for March and onwards. Sign up.
We'll leave a link in the description so that people can find it and find you guys on Instagram as well and any of the platforms that you're on. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please rate, follow and share, as it really helps this little podcast out. And if you have found value in the podcast and you have the means to, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. This will help keep the podcast going. Join me next week for another fantastic guest. Bye!